Hello, and welcome back. Last time, it seems Rena apparently tried to kill us with food. Food stuffed with sewing needles. Yeah, that's going to be awkward to bring up. I'm very interested to see where this story goes from now on, now that we know at least two of the people we're friends with are completely insane, and they've tried to kill us. So let's continue. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of muffled footsteps stops in front of the door to my room. A moment of silence as if whomever they belonged to was ascertaining if I was inside. Of all the things I should have been doing, I continued on with my relentless slumber. I was very much conscious, but my body hadn't caught up yet. Even with danger bearing down on me from just beyond the door, it was as if I was completely paralyzed, unable to move. Without a doubt, this was sheer terror. Please, just leave. Hey, why isn't my body awake yet? If they came into my room right now, then... Ah! Yeah! I sprung to my feet and threw my covers at my mom, who was opening the door.
Whoa! Whoa, Kiachi, what's the matter?
Sorry. I was, still half asleep. I thought it was still 1 or 2 a.m., but the morning sun had already been streaming through the gap between my curtains. It felt like nothing like morning. Yesterday, I must have fallen asleep right after that. Then I should have gotten a full 10 hours of rest, but it didn't feel like that at all. My internal clock was completely screwed up and my sense of balance felt off. I felt feverish enough that it was clear to me that I was still not well.
Well, Kiachi, how are you feeling? Can you make it to school?
I was well enough to go, but I wasn't mentally prepared for it. I was still plagued with the terror from yesterday. If I had swallowed that needle, what would have happened? Or what if it had pierced my tongue? There was undoubtedly a murderous intent, but I don't think that was all it was. If they really wanted to kill me, then there were other, more certain ways to do it. They wouldn't have resort to such a dubious method as having me swallow a needle. Meaning, I didn't want to believe it, but going that far was just a threat from Rena and Mion. Aren't you glad that you didn't die, but next time we'll use a more assured method. Like that. Something like sending a letter with a razor inside would have been a joke compared to this.
Did you make it to the hospital? Did you take your medicine?
Yeah, kind of. Something about my mom's dubious gaze bothered me. She seemed more concerned about her son missing 2 days of school rather than him being sick. It was definitely mental fatigue. I wasn't really physically ill.
It'll be hard for you to get back on track once your daily routine is thrown off. Come on, get up. They say wellness is a state of mind.
That's ironic. I heard that line many times before. I was given an award in elementary school for having perfect attendance, but it was like I was healthier than anyone.
Come on, go wash your face. Breakfast is already ready. There isn't much time before Rena-chan comes to get you.
Mom's tone meant I couldn't argue about it, so I had to give up on skipping a second day.
By the way, were you the one who got bean paste all over the living room wall, Kiachi? You shouldn't do something like that. Your father was quite angry.
I didn't feel particularly guilty for doing it, so I didn't have much of a reaction. Also, Mom didn't question me further about it. She headed back downstairs after she was certain I was getting up. What Mion said as she left yesterday, "I'd hate it if you'd miss school tomorrow," came back and dwelled in the back of my mind. What did she mean by that? I didn't even have to really think about it. She was saying, "Don't be absent." Taking it a bit further, it was the same as her saying I should just go about living my life as if nothing happened. If I showed any signs of acting unusual, it would probably result in them making their move. For example, maybe I shouldn't pay attention to someone like Uwashi-san enticing me with something unusual, meaning if I don't wash my mouth or did anything differently from the norm. In effect, it would end up flagging myself as someone who was not wanted. And it seems that was something the girls didn't intend to forgive. So, if I just went along acting normal, no harm would come to me. Was that how it was going to be? All the misery I experienced up until yesterday would almost creepily just fade away. It was an enticing deal. Just by forgetting everything I had seen or heard these last few days, I'd be able to keep on living like normal. There's no way such a selfish thing could... I swallowed hard. Once again, I deliberated on the idea I had just rejected. Mion was probably a good person who had her friends at heart. She was giving me, who had mistakenly broken some rule of theirs, a chance. Was what I did really something so unforgivable? But Mion had given me another chance. She was saying, if I just forgot everything and kept living like I had been, I'd be forgiven.
Kiachi, your food is getting cold. Hurry up and get down here. Rena will be here if you don't hurry.
I'm coming. I crammed my textbooks into my bag and hastily made my way downstairs. I picked at my somewhat bland breakfast. It seemed that I didn't have much time. It was already past when I usually met up with Rena. Given yesterday's events, she'd probably be here in the next 5 minutes. I needed to be ready to go to school by then. I had to forget everything that had happened the past 2 days. Forget it all and return to my normal life. For this to be normal, I'll have to be where I normally meet up with Rena. Today, of all days, the rice was dry and hard to get down. I jumped at the sound and dropped my chopsticks. That chime signaled that Rena had arrived. Mom hurried me along.
Come on, Rena-chan's already here. Hurry, hurry.
My mother's merry smile and my gloomy face were polar opposites. Honestly, I was reluctant to see Rena, who was waiting there on the other side of the door. The Rena on the other side, was it the Rena I knew? I couldn't keep her waiting. I needed to do things as usual.
Morning!
An invigorating greeting filtered in from across the doorway.
I came since Kiachi-kun was a bit late. Will he be okay today? I wonder.
The manner in which Rena was concerned was without a doubt the Rena I knew. But that was probably only if I reciprocated. Forget everything from yesterday, pretend as though nothing had happened. Forget about the gruesome dismemberment. Forget about the mysterious deaths that happened in the following years. Forget about the people falling to their deaths and the terminal illness and suicide and the lynching and the disappearances. Forget it all. Forget that Rena and Mion were scary. Of course, forget it all. Forget about everyone. Forget about the mochi, too. Forget. Rena, once again, asked to make sure.
Can you make it to school?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Great! Then let's go. Mi-chan is waiting.
Rena showed me her usual bright smile. I couldn't find any hint of deceit in her expression. My nervousness dissipated, giving way to relief.
But you see, Satoko-chan was so insistent she could do it.
As we were walking, Rena talked about a lot of different stuff, more so than usual. Then...
Satoko-chan is clumsy, so she failed no matter how many times she tried. Oh, she was so cute!
Everything Rena talked about was just silly nonsense, so I replied every so often and laughed from time to time. It was a rather laid-back conversation. We passed by one of our neighbors, and they called out to us. Oh my, Kiachi-chan and Rena-chan, aren't you two a bit late today? Mihon-chan said she was going on ahead. I feel like I've used that voice before.
Uh-oh! Did Mi-chan look mad, I wonder? We need to hurry, Kiachi-kun!
As we smiled and parted ways with our neighbor, they turned back towards me and stuck out a tongue. Not expecting that, I couldn't help but crack a smile.
Ah, Kiachi-kun smiled!
Huh? What? Rena stopped and stared at me.
I was thinking that you still hadn't recovered from your cold since you seemed a bit down this morning, Kiachi-kun, but now you seem fine!
With a grin, she gently poked my cheek. It was a bright, sincere smile. Hey, Kiachi-mabara, how can you still doubt Rena after she shows you the smile like that? Maybe I just had a high fever up until today, and I imagined everything that I thought happened because I was bedridden and delirious. I really hoped that was the case. If God would grant me just that one wish, there's only one thing that I'd wish for. I'd want what had happened the past few days. More specifically, from the night of Watanagashi up until last night, I wanted all of that to have never happened. I wonder how many times I had wished for these past few days. Okay, that's a weird sentence right there. As long as Rena kept on smiling like this, I think it might just become a reality. So I wanted Rena to keep on smiling.
So, Kiachi-kun, those mochi yesterday, did you eat them all?
That vain wish of mine was instantly shattered. My heart began palpitating, and relaxed morning mood suddenly became frigid. Rena's smile was the same as usual. Her eyes were gentle as usual. Those mochi yesterday, did you eat them all? Of course she wasn't asking the question at face value. In other words, Rena was asking, did you get the message? She was probably trying to convey that.
Kiachi-kun!
I was reluctant to give an answer. Rena stopped walking and stared deeply into my eyes. Don't hesitate, Kiachi-mabara. Rena was acting the same as always, wasn't she? I needed to respond in my usual way. Naturally, of course. But both my throat and my mouth had gone dry, and my lips were stuck together. Hurry and answer, Kiachi. Not that much time had passed, but I could still keep the conversation going naturally. I had to say something quickly. D? Rena playfully mimicked what I said and then finally squeaked something out. Rena's reaction was still normal. It seems that there wasn't as long of a pause as I had thought. Somehow I finally squeaked out the rest. Delicious. Yeah, delicious. However, my strained efforts neither sullied nor brightened Rena's expression. For a moment I panicked, thinking I had replied incorrectly. But after a few moments, Rena broke into her usual soft smile and giggled with a joyful voice that seemed to echo throughout the morning air. Being strung along by that laugh, I couldn't help but laugh as well.
I see. So you did eat them all, I wonder?
My timid smile froze again. Did you make it without swallowing the needle? Yes. Did you make it without swallowing the sewing needle? Was that what she was asking? If I had swallowed it, then I wouldn't be here. Nah, I couldn't finish all of them. There's still some left. I was scared out of my wits, but that's how I played it.
Huh? What about the homework to see if you could tell which one Rena made?
That homework. Was that due today?
Yeah, it's due today. Mi-chan will get angry. There's probably a penalty game ready for you.
We both laughed at each other again. To a casual observer, it was just a typical morning. If I could just let myself believe, then even I'd think that it was just the usual morning routine. But I was certain I wasn't mistaken. There was something unimaginable buried beneath the facade of this giggling Rena. Lies. I recalled that unexpected, piercing voice that I could hardly believe came from Rena's mouth. Maybe I should have read it in Rena's voice, but whatever. The moment that image crossed my mind, I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. Was it only at that particular time that something evil had possessed Rena? No, that was wrong. That was still Rena. Iwashi-san told me, didn't he?
Actually, I looked into her. Before Ryugu-san moved away to Haminazawa, she was suspended from school. It seems that she went through her school building and broke all of the windows.
Rena had a disorder that normal people didn't. No matter how pleasantly she smiled, that fact would not change. But I couldn't even imagine how she looked as she broke all that glass throughout the school. One thing I knew was that it wasn't something spur of the moment. If it was some sudden outburst of anger, then maybe she'd broken a pane or two. But she broke all of the windows throughout her school. Just imagining going through your own school, breaking the windows with a bat. Swinging full force at each pane of glass, one after another, paying no heed to the flying shards. Your classmates aghast. Unable to move from the sudden turn of events, I wonder where she could have found the most windows lined up in a row. Probably the hallway. Wind up, smash. Walk, wind up, smash. It was difficult for me to connect that horrifying image with the Rena smiling at me right now. But I had just had to imagine it. Impossible because it was unimaginable. That naive way of thinking no longer worked. The unpleasant, piercing sound of shattered glass, the crunching noise of Rena treading across the broken shards, walking towards me. Rena's classmates going pale as they forget to even breathe. I wondered what they did as Rena came closer, breaking windows along her path. Did they earnestly try to bring her to her senses by saying something? Or did they jump at her, trying to stop her savagery? Or did they run to the staff room after being directed there by the teachers? Probably none of these. But in the face of that blood-curdling sight of Rena bursting window after window, undoubtedly all they could do was silently clear a path for her. Didn't the one guy say she did it when, like, classes weren't on? Like, she did it after school and just broke all the windows? I don't think there was anybody around when she did it. Dumbfounded, just clearing the path for Rena to continue. It was far too violent an act for them to seek refuge by looking the other way. That's not to say that they were looking the other way. They were doing the only thing they could do to protect themselves. If they had done something differently from the rest, they might have suddenly found themselves as Rena's new target. What would Rena have done to whomever attracted her attention? The answer was obvious. She would have undoubtedly acted according to her whims. Meaning that I would be the next window. Rena staring into my eyes, shards of glass crunching and crackling underfoot as she drew closer. I was also drawn into her eyes, paralyzed. Then Rena struck me with the bat over and over again like I was one of those windows. I crouched down on the floor, desperately protecting my head. Rena didn't care whether it was my head or my back. Zealously, she hits me again and again. What kind of expression was she making as she was doing this over and over again? I peered up to see. Her expression was so indifferent. It was completely unnerving. It's because no matter how many times she struck me, I didn't make as pleasant a sound as the other windows. She struck me continuously, over and over again. The sound Rena wanted didn't come out, or classmates standing around didn't try to stop her. They didn't want to be the next window. Somebody save me, turning a blind eye unless we were hanging out. But, of course, everyone in class scrambled to obtain the highest standardized test scores. they'd gain nothing from saving a cram school tryhard like me. Eventually, there would be a faint sound, similar to that when you crack open a walnut, and some sort of reddish-black spray would shoot out. Anyway, it wasn't that Rena momentarily lost herself with anger. After forcing myself to breathe and calming down my heart, I recalled what Iwashi-san told me.
And, in the counselor's medical report, he recorded all of the conversations he had with Rena-san. It shows up. And quite a bit at that.
What does?
She mentioned the word Oshiro-sama.
Following that, Rena was suspended and had regular examinations at the hospital. Then, as Rena was undergoing counseling, she said it over and over. Oshiro-sama.
It seems that the Oshiro-sama she spoke of was like a ghost, appearing in her house every night, standing over her pillow, looking down at her.
That was the only piece of their conversation. That was the only a piece of their conversation. So I still couldn't bring that. Wow. Okay, I apologize. Let's restart that. That was only a piece of their conversation, so I still couldn't see the big picture, but it was by no means a happy little conversation. Then, what Rena did was she saying that a ghastly incident was the result of her being possessed by Oshiro-sama. Up until now, I didn't want to believe in Oshiro-sama's curse. That's why I wanted to say that the mysterious deaths every year happened because of some sort of conspiracy. Every time I talked with Iwashi-san, I was more and more certain that the deaths were the work of men and not of some curse. Except, if it was people perpetrating the incidents, my friends were somehow deeply connected. If I refused to believe that and the curse was real, then I would have to believe those who acted and the kindest to me were deeply involved in the incidents. Why? How? For what reason? Was everybody? It was much more painful and troublesome than accepting that it was just Oshiro's curse. In the aftermath, Rena had admitted to her doctor that it was because she was possessed by Oshiro-sama. I felt a strange sense of relief from that. So that's how it was. There wasn't a second side to Rena. She did that. Because she was possessed by something strange like Oshiro-sama. It wasn't Rena's fault. Oshiro-sama was the one to blame. I knew. This was all backwards. Refusing to believe there was a curse, I wanted there to be a human perpetrator. Now that my close friends were the ones under suspicion, I changed my beliefs at my own convenience, saying it was Oshiro-sama's curse to blame. Which was a better choice, accepting that Oshiro-sama's curse exists, or that Rena and the rest of them were deeply involved in a string of mysterious deaths. I didn't want to think about it. If I just didn't think about it, I'd be able to continue the same as always. I wanted to believe that. But that was no longer possible. I had received their message. It was pathetic of me to try and bend the meaning at my own convenience, regardless of my opponent being human or a curse. I won't let it kill me. As if I would just bend over and give in, for no good reason at all.
Kiyachi-kun? You've been making a really weird face. Why, I wonder?
Inhaling sharply upon hearing Rena's voice, I came back to my senses. Before I had realized it, we were already at the entrance. Shaking my head a few times, I exorcised all of those terrifying thoughts. No matter how you look at it, there was no way Rena could have done such terrible things. It was like I was trying to placate myself. As I slid the door open, a blackboard eraser loaded with chalk dropped down on my head the moment I stepped in the classroom. The chalk dust went into my eyes, inducing a brief moment of agony.
How befitting for the truant Kiyachi-san. truant.
Good morning to the both of you, Kiachi and Rena.
Good morning, Satoko-chan, Rika-chan!
Not quite in the mood for it, I didn't really react to Satoko's trap. Satoko braced herself as I passed by, expecting me to attack her. She seemed a bit disappointed as I simply walked by silently.
What is this? How discouraging indeed.
Kiachi doesn't seem to be back to his usual self yet.
Yeah, take it easy on him for today, Kay.
Suddenly, there was a slap on my shoulder. It hurt a bit.
Hey, Kiachi, did you get enough rest?
It was Mion. My mind was full of the stuff about Rena, but Mion was also a party of interest. Remember, Kiachi, that hawkish gaze from yesterday. Yeah, morning.
What's with that unenergetic greeting? Did you eat that mochi I brought you?
Because I ate them, I'm like this. Those words were itching to be blurted out. I really just didn't have the appetite. I ate a few, but quite a lot were left over.
Huh? What about your homework? Do you have an answer for which one was Rena's? I can't believe you'd forget your homework, Kiachi-kun. Hey, meh. Then we can't help it. Time for your penalty. Meh.
Flashing a lurid smile, Mion returned to her seat. There was nothing from our exchanges that would cause our classmates to suspect anything was amiss. But of course, anyone listening to our conversations up until this morning wouldn't see anything suspicious. That was why it was so frightening. They acted in a way that, regardless of whatever happened to Kiachi Mabara, no one would ever suspect them. That fact had me terrified. Soon the teacher came. After she asked how I felt and took attendance, another dull, ordinary day began. This free study period was a convenient time to consider where I stood. I gently closed my eyes and pondered the ridiculous position I was in right now. First of all, what I shouldn't forget was how dangerous of a situation I was in. I had fallen out of favor with them. After interacting with Iwashi-san multiple times, I could see I was getting closer to the heart of the matter. The warning yesterday with the mochi was a good indicator of that. No. Calling it a warning was just my habit of understating things. It probably had no meaning beyond stunting my progress and buying themselves some time. Until they had a method of completely erasing me, they were just biding their time. Even though they were keeping me under their thumb with threats, it didn't change the fact that I knew too much. The chilling sensation of my desk made me recall Satoshi Hojo, the boy who was using this seat until last year when he disappeared. Was he also similar to me? Did he learn something he shouldn't have and was erased? Damn. I wouldn't let them get rid of me so easily, never. But were they really trying to kill me? I had these contradictory feelings for a while now. Even though I suspected them, I felt I had to cover for them. With all of their suspicious behavior, a morning like this just makes it all seem like an elaborate hoax. No, that's just what they want, what I want to believe. Doubting my friends, covering for them. My life was in danger. Or was it? Actually, I was debating the wrong point. Given my current situation, these points were something that should have been deliberated on a long time ago. But really, Rena and the rest of them, were they actually aiming to kill me? The little voice inside me continued to torment me with these unresolvable trains of thought. Are you an idiot, Kiachi Mabara? The answer should be obvious. But maybe that sewing needle might have just been an accident, right? How could you screw up and drop a sewing needle into a piece of mochi? The benefit of the doubt can only go so far. Both Rena and Mion had acted and behaved suspiciously, but maybe all of it was some sort of misunderstanding. Pfft, what kind of misunderstanding? It wasn't just suspicious, it was outright ludicrous, right? Rena had just corrected me for lying, and Mion only asked me about it for what I had for lunch. Rena was standing outside our door eavesdropping for a good hour, you know. She was probably just waiting for my phone call to end. For a whole hour outside your room? And is it normal to go home afterwards without saying anything? You heard from Owashi-san, didn't you? About what Rena did to her former school? But at the hospital she said it was Oshiro-sama's fault. Am I yelling this out loud? Cut it out, Kiachi Mabara! Don't you realize they're out to kill you? I inadvertently blurted those words out loud. Hearing myself say that so directly left me dumbfounded for a few moments. Afterwards, I had to look around and check if anyone had heard it. My little soliloquy cut a little too close to the truth. Even though I could feel the murderous intent from Rena and the others, part of me somewhere was still trying to deny that. This late in the game, such hesitation could be fatal. I knew that. But I was just your average student, a man living his normal, ordinary life. Do you think I could suddenly believe that my friends, who had just been so happily laughing together up until last Sunday, now intended to kill me, right? You're too soft, Kiachi. This time I remembered to keep my voice down so that I could only hear it. There was one thing I now understood. I was too soft. I didn't completely understand how dangerous Rena and the rest of them were. No, I wasn't trying to understand. I was too soft for not listening to Washi-san when he was earnestly showing me the heart of the matter. I didn't listen because I was too busy pretending to be dejected. I didn't comprehend it. I was just running away. I didn't comprehend it, so nobody had any notion to try and kill me. I needed to just get rid of these naive thoughts. As I made that resolution, I heard the bell signaling the end of class. So soon. The day was already over. I didn't recall eating lunch or doing anything in class. My friends were putting their desks together in preparation for club activities. Not long ago, I would have probably happily jumped into that circle.
My, Kiachi-san. How rude of you to even think about leaving.
The way Satoko spoke was so typical and familiar, it almost physically hurt.
Huh? Kiachi-kun, is today not a good day? I wonder. And we were going to win big together, oh.
Seeing Rena's expression, which said she was really looking forward to today, was hard to take. Hey, Kiachi, maybe Iwashi-san is just some enormous jerk trying to separate me from the others by lying to me. Slap. Trying to expunge such weak-minded thinking, I slapped myself in the face. Oh, okay, so I actually did slap myself.
Kiachi-kun?
Yeah, was Rena really trying to kill me? I wish someone would tell me this was a hoax. I didn't care if it actually was or was not, I just wanted someone to say it. Ugh, another weak-willed thought. How did I ever become this naive?
Are you alright? Does your head hurt?
Apparently, that was how my inner dilemma appeared to Rena. You're pale.
You're pale? Can you make it home by yourself? Maybe I should accompany you home, I wonder.
No, it's okay. Sorry. I can get home by myself. Just have the meeting without me. Upon hearing that I wasn't going to participate in the club meeting, Mion pouted unhappily.
Since Ki-chan is so bent on a revenge match, we were even going to play at that deduction game from before, too.
I messed that sentence up.
Kiachi-san doesn't have the burning desire for a rematch. How pathetic.
I wouldn't fall for some dumb taunt. Without even a real retort, I just grabbed my bag and was about to get up. Someone's hand perched itself gently on my head.
Kiachi doesn't seem to be well. How very unfortunate.
It was Rika-chan. She was stretched up about as far as she could, doing her best to pat me on the head with her petite hand. It felt so nice, which made things even harder. Sorry, everybody. See you. That's all I said as I quickly left the classroom. They said something to me as I was leaving, but I couldn't make it out. I managed to make my way all the way to the entrance in that state of mind, took out my shoes, put them on, and went forward. Forward. Harden that heart, Kiachi Mabara. They were, for some unfathomable reason, trying to kill me. They were plotting something dubious, watching my every move, but I couldn't hate them. Because, weren't they my friends? Part of me lamented my naivete, while another part lamented the fact that I had lost something important by lamenting over it in the first place. I felt like my consciousness was being ripped out of my body. If this is what Oshiro-sama's curse was like, then it was just too harsh. Hey, Oshiro-sama, I was wrong for not believing in your curse, but I believe in it now. Completely. Your curse does exist, so seriously give me a break. I beg of you, come on. Dinner was unusually bland. It had no flavor or aroma. The miso soup that normally tantalized my appetite instead tasted like nothing but boiled water. Dad was eating with us that night. It was a rare occurrence in this household. When he got into his work, he ate and slept in his own schedule. My dad never cared about the time. Since my dad was at the dinner table, it was either meant that he had just reached a good point to take a break, or he was in a slump. So yeah, he just doesn't understand the dad's voice changed again, so fuck it. So yeah, he didn't understand the motivations creators have.
Your partnership was just a verbal agreement, wasn't it? If it was so hard to agree on things, why not just end it?
I feel like this industry with a lot of back scratching, but when it gets in the way of business.
I wasn't able to pick out much of my mom and dad's conversation, but I could tell it wasn't a very pleasant topic. That, of course, made the disgusting food even less appealing. Staring listlessly at the exchange between my parents, my mind wandered off to the same thought process I had going all day long. Friends close to me, no, they used to be friends, but I could no longer trust them. Right now I was greatly lacking in allies. People I trusted, people I could depend on when push came to shove, they were something I just didn't have. Having just one ally would have been incredibly reassuring on the currently hopeless situation I was in. I put down my chopsticks and looked out over my parents, who were still talking about work. The first course of action that came to mind was to tell my parents everything. Currently, there wasn't a single person from Hamanazawa I could trust 100%. That meant the only people I could trust were my parents. But if I told them everything that had happened up until now, would they understand? Rena, for example. That neighborly Rena, who was so diligent in looking after me, came to get me every day, and sometimes brought over a share of what she made. How could I explain that she wanted to kill me? No matter how I explained it, it probably would be difficult for anybody to comprehend. My somewhat eccentric dad wouldn't understand, and my high-strung mom would probably drag me off to a psychiatrist in the blink of an eye. Sadly, that was the amount of trust that existed in our relationship. Even if they did come to understand, what could they possibly do? Unless they could uncover the truth, they wouldn't be able to protect me. No, by informing them of these unnecessary things, I'd be putting my parents in danger as well. Considering that the victims in the past incidents were often married couples, I couldn't even joke about it. For the entire Mahabara family, it would have been an accident or just to vanish in thin air. It was easily possible in Hamanazawa. That was important here, as knowing something unnecessary put you in danger. The most unsettling question was, how did they know I knew? As long as they didn't know, my parents might not fall victim, and that was one way to think about it, I guess. At least, it was like that in my case. After I found out, things started becoming odd. In other words, it meant the following. As long as my parents didn't know anything, nothing would happen to them. As long as my parents were here in this house, would be a safe haven for them. I knew these were just assumptions based on conjecture on top of conjecture. Wanting this house to be a safe haven, that was the pinnacle of my weak-willed method of thinking. I had to concede that it was not completely safe, that it was safer than it could be than the outside. I knew that I couldn't rely on my parents. No, I couldn't risk getting my parents involved. Then the only person who could be my ally would be Iwashi-san. Him and him alone. He was the one person who understood the situation I was in. He didn't care so much about my safety, but he was without a doubt passionate about solving the case. It was a bit frustrating. Iwashi-san was basically the whole reason I was in this mess. Now to get out of it, I had to rely on him. Meaning it was all going according to his devices. It was just my job to look appetizing while bobbing on the waves as bait. Then, when the fish started gathering around, Iwashi-san would then pull in the big haul. It was slightly infuriating, but even I thought that was the best course of action. So, then what should I do? Patience was the first rule of fishing. Just keep waiting until the fish actually bites. But I wasn't simply bait. There were lots of ways for me to struggle before being devoured. And when they struck, I needed to somehow dodge just enough and tag out to Iwashi-san. No question, it was going to be hard. The timing to bring Iwashi-san in would be difficult. He was in the city and not Hamanazawa, so if I phoned him in my moment of need, it would take him about 30 minutes to reach me. So I needed to run away for 30 minutes. For example, if we set up a rendezvous point for dire situations or something, I'd just have to hide out there until Iwashi-san arrived. Okay, I can almost see it now. I was still being chased around in the dark by boogeymen, but now I knew which way to go. I would never have imagined this would be so reassuring. Oh yeah, it would probably be the best if I had a concealed weapon for when things got rough. Typically, that would call for a switchblade, but that wasn't too reassuring for combat. Also, since it was recognized as a weapon by the public, that also wasn't good. Really, when the time comes, a long weapon like a bat would work in my favor. I remembered there was a metal bat at school. I would be confident with that when push came to shove. If I pretended I was just practicing my swing, then it wouldn't be suspicious for me to always carry it around. I could go to school early tomorrow and secure it. Just possessing a weapon may be enough to deter them. Also, one more thing. Insurance. It could be something like a note or a memo. I could write down everything that has happened in sort of a journal. In case I suddenly vanished, the journal would be left behind. With my journal in his possession, Iwashi-san could still avenge my death. I left my parents engrossed in their conversation about work and just went back to my room. I tore out a piece of paper from a notebook and made my way to my desk. Last time I wrote a journal was for summer homework in elementary school. In the off chance something bad happened, the police could use my diary as a lead. So I should only write down the facts. How should I start? I jotted down my thoughts as they came. I, Kiyachi Mabara, am in fear for my life. It made me laugh nervously. It was a line that showed up often in detective stories. I never even dreamed that I would be in the type of situation where I'd write it myself. I do not know why they are after my life. Rena and the others were suspicious, but I had no proof. And that's why I couldn't write anything more. I laughed wryly at myself for writing such a passage draped in mystery. Would the police even be able to get a hint from reading this enigmatic passage? I could only pray that they would. What I prayed for most, though, was that this journal never needed to play its part. Here I laughed nervously. It was too simple, so I wrote down one more line I just thought of. The only thing I know is that it has to do with Oshiro-sama's curse. Was that too much? I probably shouldn't write more than that. If I wrote down anything more, it would seem like I was just delusional. In order to appear to the reader that the person who had written this was of some sound mind, I chose not to write anything else past at that point. I just needed to add more as I learned more about the truth. I folded the paper and thought about a place to hide it. By hiding it somewhere obvious, there wasn't the chance that they would never uncover it. Whoops. On the other hand, if it was in too obscure of a location, then there was a risk nobody would find it at all. In the end, I decided to take the clock off my wall and stick my folded note on the back of it with Scotch tape. After that, I put the clock back into its normal position. Yeah, it didn't look like anything was hidden behind it. Now I needed to set it up so that if anything happens to me, my parents could find it. I looked at it from countless different angles until I was satisfied, and I made my way downstairs. My parents were still talking about work. It didn't look like they was going to end anytime soon, so I cut in. Sorry to interrupt. I just have something I wanted to talk to you about. I'd never started off a conversation like that before, so my parents were both startled, and they stopped talking and turned towards me.
What is it, Kiachi?
I have a favor to ask of you, so please listen. Just in case, yeah?
If it's not urgent, can we do this later? Right now, Mommy and Daddy have something urgent they're talking about.
I didn't think their talk was more urgent than mine. In any case, I stated my request. Just in case, okay? If I die... Both of my parents' eyes went as wide as saucers. If I die, I want you to put the clock in my wall in my coffin. If they did that, then they'd probably find it. That is the stupidest way to bring this up to them. My memoir. Both my parents remained wide-eyed, not moving an inch. I couldn't blame them. I made that clock in shop class, and I'd really like it. So, please.
What's the matter, Kiachi? Did something happen?
Mom was finally able to speak and asked me with a questioning gaze. Of course, this was a normal response for when someone's son suddenly talked about a subject like this. I felt bad about making them worry, but right now I just wanted them to think about the clock in my room. With the awkward mood leaving the room in silence, I decided to go back up to my room. I want to get to school early tomorrow, so I'm going to bed. Good night. Saying that, I left the living room. And thus the most awkward conversation happened. I needed to get to school early tomorrow and secure that bat. I should make today the last day I went to school with Rena. As I climbed the stairs, I heard my mom call my name, but I pretended not to hear her. It wasn't something I could talk about with my parents. If I talked about it, it would only make things more dangerous. The fight that had begun was in my mind and was mine and mine alone. I couldn't rely on anybody. I wouldn't be killed. Not when I knew nothing. Not feeling so hot. New tips.
Kiachi-kun's been feeling down lately. Maybe he's in a bad mood.
I wonder. Maybe he's on his period.
Mii-chan, that's gross.
What do you think? I don't know. Fuck. When you give me shit that I can't tell who's talking, it becomes impossible. Okay,
What do you think?
I don't know. Could be that Key-chan, maybe.
I don't know.
That day, Key-chan was in that car talking to some tubby middle-aged guy, right?
Yeah, no mistake.
That Iwashi, he probably fed him something fishy.
He was so serious. Kiachi-kun's face was so pale.
You see, you might not know this, but he's actually the messenger of Oshiro-sama.
Huh? What do you mean?
Whenever he shows up, someone is demoned away. No lie.
Oh, is that so?
The year before last, when Rika-chan's mom drowned, right? Right before that, she was visited by Iwashi.
Now that you mentioned it, it has happened before. Satoshi-kun transferred out. Now that, yeah.
Transferred? You're so sweet, Rena.
So this time he's appeared before Kiachi-kun? So Kiachi-kun is going to be demoned away too?
an empty silence hung in the air, and then it was suddenly interrupted by loud laughter. That was weirdly interesting. That maybe changes the whole thing if that's actual truth and not them just kind of dick-bagging around like, oh, when that guy shows up, we gotta kill whoever he talked about, or they were legitimately like, when that guy shows up, people disappear for some reason. That's a very interesting, very weird tip that I'm not entirely sure what to make of. But this episode was a little weird. So basically, what happened is we kind of got our resolve in this episode that we don't want to lose. We don't want to die. We're dead setting ourselves on doing whatever it is to protect ourselves from whatever's happening. And I guess we've decided that none of those people are our friends anymore because they all have been really creepy and scary to us and have tried to kill us. So next episode might be a bit of confrontation between that. Because, I mean, we're going to go get a bat to protect ourselves and just keep a bat on us for reasons. And then that tip could change the aspect of how you see the story, but I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to find out next time on Higurashi.